This Polycom is digital, so.
Because I did
It's digital,
include two
wireless.
when I sent the quote, so.
Okay. But if I can get a grant
Yeah,
funded,
thank you.
Right.
it's about $1,000.
Yes, absolutely. And Commissioner Gardner needs one.
Oh,
Mr. Fuller got one. That was the memo she was referring to.
I don't have a copy of that. I had it, but I don't know what it
Well, I thought I did
is. I was
too, but
using
then
that sheet.
I was gonna
That's
say
what I
that
thought you
looks-
were gonna work off of.
That looks very similar, doesn't
Yeah, I
it?
know.
this is the phone, you can scroll on conference calls, sitting with.
Maybe it's the, like say maybe the wires.
probably the line coming in. You can make them wires.
I hope it works, because I did it Monday for your first call.
Yeah, when it doesn't go out.
Fairview and Reed. Amanda's back here. There was some in the back too. There were 3 of them, and now there's one more Mark.
I'll make 5 more maybe?
Yeah, I was buying it too, but I know.
This is something that I thought about adding to the handbook.
Okay. But he's just talking about maybe changing shift hours. That would be a reason not to put hours in there if he adjusts. I thought that's what he just said,
Well, I
wasn't it?
think I got his shift hours.
He said with the new payroll system,
Oh.
the new timekeeping system, he may change his shift hours. So some of these items, I think when you all make some decisions, they can either go to Nicole or back to us to incorporate. Oh, we do that shift hour. Can I hang on to this?
Sure. I made extra copies for that reason.
Here's some extra, I'm gonna leave these extra copies back here for the back end of the one.
Last night on a
7-pound test line. Where was this?
my phone.
And that's a wiper?
No, that's a
Catfish?
big
Did
channel.
we lose her? Becky. Yes, they went to grab another phone.
Take a look
They
at
went
that.
to the emergency building to get the big speaker.
Oh,
So we're taking a little break.
okay, okay, perfect. Commissioner Helen will do that.
Right in between St. Francis Weaver and the highway.
Is Tammy, I left a message.
Oh. Oh, my.
I left a message for Tammy at the EMS building, health insurance. She's gonna need those cards in there tomorrow, May 1st. Because her health insurance.
I have the one that they were given to me yesterday. Only I printed it out a little different than you did.
Oh, this piece.
I printed it out big way.
Well, I did too. I
Yeah.
brought my big copy and I wish,
Oh, okay.
I wish I could point to each page where these items were.
Get in
My phone. I got, he's 30 pounds. I got years of Sunday.
That's a little better sized heat.
Mm-hmm. twice a day. You've got an automatic heater that goes off and recharges with sunlight.
Just throws it in there.
Yeah, what it is the food chamber's above it, and the food pressure's on there, and it's a plate that's got this up, so you spin it a little bit, so it really gives you like a meteor.
Or your fish, like, fish hatchery, and they all jump like
Okay.
that.
Oh, these are the smiles, okay, got it.
You've got place lines.
Dog.
I love
So if he
it.
doesn't get back in time,
Oh.
I'll install it with you. So, there's some stuff on YouTube too that I have to get you. So, there's a couple web links that you have to look to, if you want to see like the storm spotters and stuff. It's pretty interesting the other day when they have this in there. Do you? You saw all those dots show up. It was pretty wild.
Right.
The younger side, people have no problems, but
Especially for law enforcement. Good luck with your new system.
Grab one if you don't have them that way.
I just saw him pull up out here, so. Camera's still rolling. Hey, there we go.
thank you.
Yes. 10 inches of 10 inches or so.
He suggested since it's going to hear her, maybe we facilitate the discussion.
Okay.
I think that's a good thing.
Hey, Deb, in the future, if there's a conference call expected on the agenda, we can bring that down.
Oh, that would be good, because that one got.
Just remind me. I'll be right
Bill,
back.
I think.
Sorry, your call cannot be completed as done.
This
Have you tried shaking
change-
it?
Yeah, I've got two in my quote.
Good, good. We should have
One for
some.
this office only and one for spare, so.
Yeah, we use it all the time.
You too, I can send that.
Hello?
Hi Becky, it's Beth.
Hi.
We are back again. So we can actually hear you very well.
Oh, good.
But, okay, so back to the handbook. Everyone has a copy of the memo that April 25th, 2016, that outlines some unresolved items and issues in the handbook. And so I think this kind of goes to county commissioners and even input from department heads and elected officials. We had some items as we began working through the handbook that we needed additional guidance on. And those items are mainly summarized here in this list, and department heads will have a few items as well. And so I think question number one is whether or not the county wants to drug test all new hires. And your current policy, if I recall it correctly, focuses on road and bridge and emergency, the sheriff's office. So other than that, unless you fall in And probably be in that summer, right?
I think all no, period.
So we have our own policy up there, so it'd be great if it was here.
All right, so, and I can tell you that many entities are moving toward this as a hiring practice for a lot of different reasons. So we needed direction from the commission on this.
I vote yes. Okay.
Okay, so we'll just kind of keep track here and then summarize at the end. The handbook as it's written now does allow those hourly or non-exempt employees to accumulate compensatory time instead of being paid overtime. And this says that this is at the employee's choice if the board allows this. And so we've written it in that manner. I think we need some more direction from you all as to whether or not you want to allow comp time for those hourly employees instead of overtime. And with some restrictions, of course, and it talks about the hours to be accrued would be 100 hours to be paid out or used within 120 days.
I think they should have the choice.
Okay.
Agree.
All right. Are you can you hear that, Becky?
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Okay. And then third would be whether or not exempt employees, currently they don't accrue compensatory time, comp time, unless the board allows it. And you are allowed to grant that within policy definitions if you would like, but that again needs to be something you help us with and that is clearly defined.
And just a note about that, most cities and counties do not grant compensatory time for exempt employees. They only do that for non-exempt employees. So that would be you'd be an exception if we did that.
Can I ask a
Keep the current
clarification?
policy.
What's that?
Can I ask a clarification on what's exempt? Is that just salary or is that elected officials?
It would be exempt and elected positions would not be getting compensatory. Let me say that comp time. So elected positions are considered exempt positions, as are department heads, generally speaking.
I guess I'm asking more for my employees who are now salaried. Would they be considered, since they're salaried, exempt, or are they considered?
Most of the employees, and this is something we're going to clarify in job descriptions, and this is something we've had problems with in this county, where we call employees salaried, but they're not really salaried. Most of the employees under a department head are going to be non-exempt employees. But to be clear, when we adopt our new employee job descriptions, the employee is going to know exactly where they stand, because part of their job description will tell them whether or not they're exempt or non-exempt.
And can I ask just a little more clarification on the exempt employees? Is that exempt employee expected to work a specific shift and a specific number of hours per day, or is it based on a week? Is it, I've seen some definitions of it as long as they are working during that pay period, that.
I don't think I'm following your question, so
So
I'm sorry.
an exempt employee, do they have to, clock in to work 8 hours per day every day? And if they don't get 40 hours during that week, if they get 30, but the following week they work 60, is there any dock-in pay for the fact that they had a flexible type hours?
Department heads do, because they get sick, personal, and vacation leave. Elected officials do not get sick,
She's
personal,
asking
and
though
vacation.
here's the thing, we have applied federal definitions to determine who's going to be exempt and non-exempt. And the reason I'm struggling here is because none of these decisions have been made. So you're asking,
But those will be considered in the
yes,
policy
those will be
handbook.
considered. And ultimately, if you're an exempt employee, you may still need to clock in and out, but it's not for purposes of determining your pay.
Right.
It's for purposes of determining your benefits packages. Okay.
And the reason the definition I think is important when you're talking about comp time for an exempt employee is if the expectation is that you're always working 40 hours a week and you work 80 hours this week. is there that flexibility that you know that you may compensate a little bit by the next week of only working 20 or 30 hours? Because you had a big project and you had to complete it and you worked, it's not unusual that I work until 2 o'clock in the morning on a grant because the deadline is at 5.
Well, I think the practical, the practical definition, I mean, if beyond talking about FLSA and definitions, I mean, really the difference between an exempt and a non-exempt employee is an exempt employee works until the work is done.
Right.
And sometimes, as a lot of us that are in this exempt position, that means you work 32 hours. And then the next week you get to work 80.
Right. And I gotta make sure
And
that,
that's up to you to manage as the employee.
But that's a
Okay.
totally separate issue.
and I'm glad to hear you say that. 'Cause
Okay.
there are times you can get the work done faster and then you know that the next week you're just gonna be dumped on. So,
And I will say, as an exempt employee that has had comp time, it's a damn mess, and I'd love to get rid of it. I really would. That's my opinion,
yeah.
straight up.
All right, Becky, that was Reed.
Just
for the record.
So on that, no exempt time, no comp time for exempt? Is that the?
Yeah, that's a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that's item number 3. Number 4, before Becky, before you joined us, there was a discussion with the payroll system. I think, again, you all are mulling this over. When is the pay period going to begin? We are in agreement with Nicole that the current system asking people to account for their time before they've worked it is not the system you want to be using. So you'll just need to guide us after you make some of those decisions about what is the pay period, is it, when are those periods going to happen? And so I think that one's probably on hold until you make some other decisions. The other item here is callback pay, which we've outlined, holiday pay. These are on page 16 of the handbook. And for holiday pay, for example, if an employee is working a holiday, then of course we're recommending, especially for EMS and the Sheriff's Office, when they are working a holiday, that they receive time and a half, and that's standard practice.
So just to clarify, they would receive pretend that they are working an 8-hour shift, which isn't true. They would receive 8 hours of regular pay, and then on top of that, they would get 12 additional hours in holiday pay. So this is, that's fairly common. Some places do it like a double time. Some do a pay for the holiday as hours worked, and then they give them time and a half like we recommended here. This is meant to incentivize people who are going to be working Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to actually, of course, be there in those essential services. It would also include things if, for example, you're snow plowing over holidays, which happens. So we want to make sure that we're fair and that it's an appropriate incentive for people to work the holidays.
Does this sound reasonable to the board?
Yeah, it's standard practice for federal to work that way, and I believe state too, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So item number 6 would be longevity, and this would also include, so this would be 10 cents an hour for every 5 years of service or employment, and we would include elected officials here as well. And I know that, and that's that would be a change or a different way to handle elected official longevity than what you've done in the past, but it's more consistent with what other elected officials, what we'd recommend, and it's standard across all
Have you
employees.
seen this before?
Mm-hmm.
You have, for longevity.
Yes. So, and maybe this is something you want to think on, or do you have any other comments, Becky?
Just that it puts in writing maybe some practices. I don't know if you've given longevity or lump sum payments or things like that in the past, but I was trying to treat the elected officials the same as their direct reports, and honestly, it helps in terms of overall wages so that elected officials who have employees underneath them, if they're getting a lot of longevity and the elected official isn't, we don't want their pay to be close together. We want it to still be separated out, but there's some distance between the two. That's part of why I recommended it this way. So it wouldn't be really converted to 10 cents an hour. It would be some monthly amount based on, what would 10 cents an hour be to each elected official pay.
Becky, this is Deb Linston. I have a question on the longevity pay. Is that continuous years of employment? Say an employee works for X number of years and then quits for whatever period of time and then comes back. It only applies to continuous years of service?
Right. I'm 99% sure that's how I wrote it. So
okay.
If you have a break in service other than for family medical leave,
correct,
and like on unpaid during that time,
yes,
then there would be no continuation of the lot. You couldn't come back 2 or 3 years later and pick back up. You'd have to start all over.
So back to why Becky recommended this, we were seeing in other counties that those deputies and the undersheriff were almost topping their elected pay. Okay, and so this is a way to, once pay scales are set, that's keeping pace, some separation between a department head or an elected official and their direct reports. Okay. So is that something you want to consider, or should we put that on the yay or nay list, or?
Works for me.
I guess we can have it.
And keep in mind, this is not, what we're doing is giving them guidance
Yes.
towards our next draft. We're not making any final decisions on these issues today.
Okay, so we'll include it, and if you have a change of heart later, you can, as Nicole said, take that out. The handbook here says that employees can carry weapons, unauthorized possession of firearms or other
Sorry,
weapons.
can't carry weapons, sorry.
Okay, so that says, okay, that should be can't.
And Becky, this is Nicole, the county attorney.
Yeah.
I sent an email out to the board regarding the possession of firearms in county buildings. Since we're a municipality, a county government, we are controlled by certain state laws regarding the possession of firearms. And so I wanted to make sure the board understood what that is. And I mean, simply put, we cannot prevent the possession of firearms in county buildings unless we have adequate security measures in place. So, I mean, the only way that we could prevent or prohibit the possession of firearms in county buildings, including by our employees, would be if we had adequate security measures in place, which we clearly do not.
We can't afford.
Right. So I just wanted to make that clear that we're kind of in a unique position, that since we are a municipality, we can't prohibit individuals, including our employees, from either open or closed carrying or concealed carry in county buildings.
Yeah, so for that reason, this needs to come out of the handbook as it's one of the conduct items that counties use to discipline employees for violating a policy like this. So I need to delete this section out of your handbook, out of discipline measures. So thank you, Nicole, for giving clarification on that.
And there might be something special about in the back of an ambulance, but I'll research that and let you all know.
Thank you.
I think there's something, but I don't know.
There is. But that's going to, I think, be a separate issue than actually, because the real issue we're dealing with right now is the conduct of employees carrying within the buildings themselves.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That wouldn't cover employees in the back of an ambulance.
The way this is written right now, no. But if you have a concern about that, and I think any concern you have, I mean, we may be able to do that separate and outside of the actual employee policy handbook. Does that make sense? Okay.
All right, so item number 8 would be revision of the sexual harassment to include any harassment based on protected category. Okay, so
So
that's-
you updated that too?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that it was way out of date.
Yes, thank you for noticing that.
I did have one question on that. It doesn't make reference to whether it's an elected or appointed employee as well. And I don't know if the harasser is an elected official, God forbid, is there any recourse for the employee?
I
Well,
feel
there's
like-
a procedure to be followed in the harassment policy, and it gives a couple of different options in case it is an elected official. That
It never
is the
specifies
harasser.
in
So
there.
there's a procedure to be followed, an investigation would be handled, and then you'd have to go from there. So.
I thought it did, I'm looking. Carol,
The
I
version
will,
I saw, I didn't. So it
and
may
we're
have
like
been modified.
4 drafts past what the department heads got.
Because I know that they can't be terminated because they're elected, but there still should be some guidelines.
I
To
believe
protect
that
the
has been
employee.
addressed, but I'll make a note to
Okay.
double check it for you, Carol, but I think it has.
All right, the next item would be social media policy and internet use. Do you want to talk about that, Becky?
So the policy that is drafted is the social media policy I have in here is one that is used in lots of cities and counties very recently. It addresses who is authorized to speak on behalf of the county through social media such as Facebook and Twitter and things like that. It also addresses or reinforces probably a policy that you have currently about what employees can and can't do on the internet and on your equipment, whether it's internet or a cell phone that you issue to someone, or whether it's even on their own personal time, how they might actually say something that doesn't put the county in the best light. So it just gives some behavior guidelines as to what people should and shouldn't do.
I'm going to be a broken record here, but can I comment on that? From like an emergency management perspective, we actually log on, because there was also something in there about when employees can talk with the media as well, and it needs to go through the Board of Commissioners, department head, I think. I just want to make sure we get into chat rooms with like the National Weather Service, and the media is in there. So that is a form of direct communication with the media. We are, and this is standard practice for emergency management on social media, both Ryan and I and his other assistants, we all go in and we make posts. So, is that appropriate too? Because I'm directly speaking with the media when I'm doing that. And if we have a weather event and Ryan's not available, I would need to make a comment to the media about the conditions. When do we really have to get board approval to speak to the media? And when do we not? Because we would restrict what we are able to say before their press deadlines if we have to get permission.
I can't hear everything that, I think it's Carol that's talking, but the policy doesn't prohibit employees from doing their job-related functions.
I see what you're saying on the media contact, and I do think we need to probably clarify that there are going to be circumstances where direct media contact will occur, and then maybe just a report be made afterwards.
I don't want to violate the policy,
Yep,
and
I
I
see
don't
what you're
want to
saying.
not let them get some content for their deadline,
Yes, I have made a note.
especially in grants too.
Nicole,
Yes.
this says that designated spokespeople are authorized to post those sorts of things. So if the emergency management designated person is Carol or...
Well, and Carol's questions, I think a lot of her questions about social media postings have been addressed, but she had specific questions about comments directly to the media.
Okay.
And I think in looking at the employee policy handbook, probably do need to clarify that, but that's something I'll look at, Becky.
Okay, great.
And run by the board and get back to you on it.
And I think you're right. a statement in their job description that this position may be the point of contact for the media, which I believe both Ryan and Carolyn believe have in their job descriptions, so that helps as well. Okay, the next item would be whether or not the county wants employees to accrue more sick leave, and if so, would they want to reduce the number of personal days?
I'm not recommending that you do this. This is some feedback that we received. This is based on a request.
Have you ever dealt with, like, if somebody wants to donate sick leave to somebody else that's sick, is that in the handbook? I didn't see that.
I don't think it's in their handbook, is it, Becky?
Like a sick leave bank where you can grant it to someone else?
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't know. I'll have to go back and look and see if I put that in there. But I did put in a section for to clarify that people, once you use your vacation, once you use all your paid leave, whether it's sick or vacation or personal time, that a person can go on unpaid leave for a period of time.
And I believe the employee policy handbook right now says that employees can donate any portion of their accumulated
Okay.
sick leave to another employee on a case-by-case basis approved by the board.
So I would recommend leaving your personal days as are and not increasing your sick leave. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the final item, Becky, about sick leave. Does the county want to pay 50% of sick leave balance when people leave county employment or retire?
This is a pretty high percentage that is in here. A lot of cities and counties, I'll be honest, used to pay 100%. I remember when I was at Johnson County, our Register of Deeds retired. She had 48 years of service, and nearly her whole next year's budget was a payout for her for retirement. So, but of course, auditors and budgeting people and accountants began saying, okay, let's whittle this down. Let's give them a percentage so that they're incentivized, of course, to save their sick leave instead of a using it or losing it sort of mentality. So 50% is high. A lot of places have 20%, 25% of a payout. So this is really a policy question for you all.
I'm going to leave that alone for right now. Let's see what the state does. If the state does it, I'm fine with that.
Can I make a suggestion? I researched what the state does. See, and they had 7.65 hours per month is what they're allowed of sick leave per month. And then they have a higher number of total. You know, like we limit ours at 360 hours? No.
Yes, 360.
40-some days. Yeah, okay.
It's 360 hour max.
Okay. And theirs is a higher max, and then also when they retire, they get a percentage of that back. So that's where I probably brought up some of the questions. And see, we got some guys at 360. We don't know what we're doing with that, whether we're going to increase it or what. So, because currently, you know, we had a policy in the minutes that said that we're paying an additional day, an 8-hour day for every month that they, you know, was at the max. So are we going to still keep that in place or not?
Which that's a separate question than the one being posed right now, which is paying out of sick leave upon retirement. But
I would offer that we could go back to a few peers and ask them for their policies if the commission would like.
That would be a good idea.
We would be glad to do that
I
for
think the county should
Northwest
follow
County.
the state, but that's my personal opinion.
So we'll leave it as is while I collect some additional information for you.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
sound reasonable?
Okay, so those were the major items in the handbook that I wanted to be sure that we covered in our 4th or 5th iteration. I, of course, I so appreciate everybody's input. I think it's, made the document just better all the time. So I appreciate that. I'm sure Nicole does too, and the commission. How about next steps? Maybe we go back and make some of these adjustments, do a little bit more research, and maybe get you another draft to Nicole.
That would be super helpful.
So Becky, I think we can incorporate the up or down items here and then shorten the unresolved issue list.
Right.
Okay, we can do that.
Can I ask just one question? And I don't know where it's at in the versions that are out there, the draft versions, but is there any more discussion about the hours of different departments, including emergency services? When we're all expected to be staffed?
Beth, you may have to repeat a question.
Okay, that was Carol. She wanted to know if there's any more discussion in the handbook about hours worked. Sorry, let's just say office hours or opening hours is how I would interpret
yeah,
it.
that was, yeah.
I know I read it, but I can't point to it.
But I think at this point, the handbook pretty much addresses hours being open for the courthouse. But beyond that, I don't think there's much guidance in the policy handbook right now about county offices outside of the courthouse.
Right.
Right.
And we can address that.
And I think part of the concern is, and part of my concern in being too specific on that in the policy handbook, is that for the departments that are outside of the courthouse, I think giving those departments and department heads some autonomy to be able to make decisions about how to best run their departments, including making determinations about office hours, rather than tying them down by including that in the policy
I just want to make sure,
handbook.
because we always get you guys are never up there from 8 to 5, the emergency building. Well, if we're doing our jobs, a lot of times we're not going to be in the office.
Right, and I think the answer is there is not going to be office hours for offices outside of the courthouse, for the very reason that the offices outside the courthouse have unique job responsibilities, and those office hours are going to be determined by department head. So that's why they're not in.
Which is
not
what
in
the
there.
policy says right now.
Yep.
It's determined by department heads.
Does that answer your question?
It does. I was just curious if there had been more discussion on it.
Okay, so we have some follow-up to do, some cleanup for you all, and then we will bring you a new unresolved item list. And the other thing is that every time you give a document to Nicole, you guys have this electronically. It will be easy as you progress in your discussions over the next few months to update and change policies that need to be done. Deb and Nicole will have the document to do that. So I would propose that we make another run through here, clean things up a little bit more, let you know what the unresolved items are, and then perhaps turn it over to you all to make the final dustings, because there are some items on here related to payroll that are going to come later, but we'll itemize what those things are. Does that sound like an okay approach? Okay.
Yeah,
All right, your list is getting shorter.
Well, and I will say for the board, I think you have a lot of information to digest, but one thing that you'll really be wanting to focus on in the next 2 to 3 weeks is thinking about how you want to address some of those payroll issues, because I think that's the one area that we still have a lot of hashing out to do, and part of that is because we're adopting a new software and trying to make sure the clerk's office and the employees have appropriate guidance. So just to set reasonable expectations for you guys about, I think, what probably some of the more pressing issues are going to be, kind of be thinking about what your policy decisions regarding payroll are going to be.
Because I got quite a few notes on these that I was going to give to you and see what you thought.
Okay.
The only glaring thing that I see right now that has not been addressed is a future rating system, evaluation system.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to have position descriptions.
Right.
So how do you evaluate the employee? You evaluate them against that position description.
So, Commissioner, when we first met, you asked me that very question.
Yeah.
And we would be glad to provide you some samples that you could consider for performance evaluation.
Yeah.
But even that, you have so many things immediately to take care of
Oh, yeah.
in the next 6 months that, again, that's probably something down the road, but we will put some things together for
Well, and
you.
I think what Ronnie is saying is that he may want something in the handbook indicating
Right.
an annual review process to be conducted by department heads and then shared with the commissioners. Is that what you're saying? Ronnie?
Yesterday I attended the hospital board meeting, and they stated that the month of May is when hospital employees get their semi-annual performance review by their supervisors.
Right.
So they get 2 reviews. They get a semi-annual, which is really a evaluation about how they're doing and where they might be weak. Can they improve? If they do, they get their final evaluation at the end of the 1-year period, and that's what goes into their employee records. That midpoint one is between the supervisor and the employee, and it's used as a stimulant to help the individual employee perhaps perform better.
And Commissioner, that's best practice.
Yeah.
And that if we,
And that's a standard practice
Yes.
in
yes.
big industry today as well as government today.
So let me ask the board for a little direction. Would you like us to insert that there will be a minimum of an annual performance review?
I would.
And,
How do you think?
And recommended 6-month and annual? Okay.
Yeah.
Becky, we can do that, right?
Things in check.
Right, no problem.
Yeah. And then after that, then we will provide some tools for you
Okay.
that you can consider for use. Obviously, this goes to different departments. The sheriff's office already has a process in place. When you're in training, you have a process in place. And so there are some departments that probably a little further along and already have some things in place. So we will do that. We want to thank you. You guys have been very good to work with, participatory. People gave feedback. When we did the job descriptions, just so the commissioners know, these department heads spent a lot of time and they invested a lot of effort, and so did the employees. When we began with the employees, we did a detailed interview with them, and their questionnaire alone probably took 45 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half if you're Carol, I don't know.
Yes, I love to talk.
Well, as you combine positions and those kind of things, so the employees invested a lot up front to get the ball rolling, and that all fed into developing the job descriptions, and Deb alone just helping us with the salary survey and getting payroll data together that was accurate was very helpful as well. And we can't say enough about your county counselor, county attorney here. She's been great. So.
Becky, I might have you address with the board a little bit on the purchasing and the contract policy, which Cheyenne County has never had one before. I have a copy here, but if you might briefly touch base with them on that.
Sure. You had asked me to think about including a purchasing policy in the handbook. Usually purchasing policies, there are certain policies that the board may adopt that don't specifically go right into an employee handbook. A travel policy might be one, purchasing policy might be another. There are all kinds of different policies that you might have that are separate. How much you have in reserves, for financial reasons. So boards don't put every item into a handbook, but I did send Deb a sample from a different county. And Deb, I apologize. I intended to send you a guidebook, and it got stuck because it was so big on the printer that it wouldn't print. So I have to make a different arrangement to get you a different document. But I do think there are some items like that. I would call them administrative procedures or something like that for the board that you probably want to make more formal. And a purchasing policy is one of them.
Well, and let's, as we segue to another policy decision, that would be if We've talked about pay ranges this morning and job classifications. If something were to change, you need a policy to manage that change. Let's say two departments are combined suddenly or split apart. We have put together a guidebook for you to have about how to handle job classifications and a proposed policy. We usually don't give it to you at this point because you're kind of on information overload, but we have that document ready for you, and that gives you a procedure to follow when jobs change, when positions are added or subtracted. So we want you to know that that will be, it's ready to go. As I said, we just didn't want to overload the
Right.
system here. And that will go to these folks to then bring back to you in the future.
Because I think in the reality right now we're focusing mainly on the employee policy handbook, but the reality for this board is that when we are finally to the place that we're able to consider formally adopting that employee policy, there are probably 2 or 3 other policies beyond items that Austin Peters are going to do for us that we need to consider doing all at once. Because as this board's aware, we've kind of had a little bit of a history about approaching things informally in this county. And I think this is kind of a good way to start afresh. And when we adopt our employee policy handbook, go ahead and get some of those other formal policies in place so that the board and the employees and even the public who holds our, county government responsible can hold us accountable for that. So, I mean, the reality of it is there's probably going to be adopting of 3 or 4 or 5 different policies once we finally get to the place where we can adopt our employee policy handbook.
Becky, I had a question. We were looking at getting credit cards for either department heads or maybe 2. We tabled it from the last meeting. What would your advice be on that?
Well, it kind of goes along with the purchasing policy.
Right.
There have been some counties that have had great success implementing credit cards and streamlining their accounting and purchasing processes. And one of those is Grant County and Sheila Brown's office in the county clerk's office. They have really done a great job because every purchase is made with a credit card. It's all been downloaded to Excel files, and then they post things in journals and stuff like that. But it has really streamlined their process, and so fewer steps and fewer duplication of effort for them. So I think it can work, and I think it can work well. I think you just have to have some policies around that sort of thing as well.
Now, does each department head have a credit card in Grant County, or do we just have
every employee has one? So department heads have one up to a certain limit.
Becky, you got some wide eyes.
Very wide.
We were just wondering where we are.
I know, I said everybody, and they said yes, everybody. So their gas, when they gas up, is a little different. So, it's for handling some things like that as well.
So how about, back to the question though, Becky, might be if they implement it on a more limited basis with selected departments, I think policy guidance on that.
Right, and that's part of what I think I already sent to Deb.
Yeah,
If I didn't, Deb, it's in that manual that I was trying to print.
Yeah, and I think what Becky's hitting on here is that's probably a policy that's inappropriate to include in the employee policy handbook, and we need to include that in a separate purchasing. It's going to be one of the separate, because we currently do not have a formal purchasing policy, and that's, I think, something separately we can consider, but that would be kind of beyond Austin Peters.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement, Becky?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, Becky, thank you very much.
Well, thank each of you
Any
for
other
having me
questions?
on the line.
Okay. Well, you have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That worked beautifully. Thank you for bringing
Yes, Reed, thank you for getting that.
No, that's fine.
Do y'all need anything else?
You need one.
from me?
You're good.
Okay. All right, so we'll follow up with you. Thank you so
All right,
much.
Thank you for coming. Drive safe. Does anybody have anything further? Okay.
And I just wanted to say again, the department heads have been fabulous to work with. We've been trying as much as possible to be going through one person to, one, have someone who kind of knows what everyone's thinking and to help with Austin tutors. And I just want to thank everyone because I know this is a difficult, time-consuming process, and we have gone from an 11-page handbook to a draft that I believe now is at 46 pages.
52.
So I just wanted to let the board know how amazing the department heads have been and just thank them for being patient with me during this difficult process.
We appreciate being engaged.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that very much.
If any department head has any suggestions, get a hold of one of us commissioners. We'll write it down.
Can we get the latest version, because we've gotten nothing but.
I think we're probably going to go through a couple more drafts before we distribute again. The department heads will get another draft, but we're probably, I would anticipate we're another 2 drafts out probably from being able to do that and have it be efficient or helpful.
And just one other question, where are we with the credit cards? Or is that something you're still working on? Or?
I'm really waiting on a decision of the board on that. They tabled it from the last meeting.
And I think after talking to Becky, I think it might be one of the, that we get each department head one. I don't know about every employee that has. So, I know we tabled it last time. I don't have a problem with department heads having it as long as we, it's going to be a trial run. If we have trouble, we'll have to.
Our website is getting ready to renew, and
Okay.
it's electronic only, so
Okay.
at some point I'm going to have to either.
All right.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I can just say from our experience, it's not uncommon for a department head to have a credit card. And that probably is what you were looking for from Becky.
Yeah.
She gave you the far end example of Grant County.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely not uncommon. In fact, we kind of expect that they do have a credit card.
Spending
in their
limits,
purchasing.
what are they?
They used to be a lot lower, of course, but it's somewhere between $500 and $1,000.
Okay. All right.
And we could add that to the list if you want to know other counties.
Per
I would-
department or per?
Now, Dave has a little different situation, so does the sheriff. They have hired items
Right.
for purchase, and that's why you might see Public Works and the sheriff's office with the different, and perhaps
Right.
EMS.
I think we bumped Cody up to 1,000, didn't we, Cody?
So whatever you
Last I
currently
checked,
have.
it hadn't been done at the bank yet. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it has been. I think we need to check on the process to make sure.
No, because I think you guys tabled Deb doing anything more formal and
Well-
getting the credit cards.
Do I hear a motion to get credit cards for each department head? That way we can get the ball rolling and set a maximum at this time.
What was the maximum going to be? That was part
It
of
was
it.
500 for most departments.
And
then
the sheriff needed 1,000.
Right.
Can I make a suggestion
Yes,
too?
you may.
Public Works traditionally is a higher, and EMS may also, when they do a batch of something, or that's just based on experience, but you can, those are 3 departments that come to mind.
Yes, Dolores.
Just for like, when we go for our trainings or our meetings, just to kind of give you a rough estimate of what it would cost. I'm gonna say between motel and meals and gas, it's gonna be over $600 to $700. So, just to kind of give you an idea, I mean, those are
And those
might be
will,
about the only thing we would use it for in our office, other than there might be, I would like to get some software on some of my gals' computers that I think would make their job easier. You
But
can't get it
most of
without
that
just
you'll-
downloading it and paying it with
right.
the card.
Most of that you will come to us first
Yeah.
to get
Oh, yeah.
approval. So.
But you're gonna still have to have that
Right.
limit on that card when you apply for it, I believe.
Gentlemen, what do you think?
And you approved a $1,200 med fridge for me,
Yes.
and I can't figure out a way to buy it. And
Okay.
this is kind of an example of every place I go, I have to have that card. And
Okay.
just an example.
Well, I don't want to table it any longer. What do you?
Suggestion of what we see through accounts payable, $500 might be a low limit for, and I agree with Dolores, like the clerk and the treasurer, most of what we're going to use it for is motel lodging and meals. Probably $1,000 max is sufficient, but for like Dave or the sheriff or EMS, it may need to be higher. But for most departments, $1,000 is going to cover it. Just by what we see through accounts payable that
And
come and go from.
with the understanding that most of this stuff is going to be pre-approved, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem
Until
with that.
500.
Right. Okay. Great. Yes, ma'am.
On the travel then, if you're talking meals and gas,
Not, probably not
Not
gas.
gas, 'cause you get mileage.
You get mileage. Right. There's some employees that get a mileage rate, so you couldn't charge gas on it. But like the sheriff, they use a county vehicle, they would put gas on it. So there's limits.
but the meals, what about the per diem amount? That seems.
The handbook says $12, but I think I'm going to make a recommendation to go up to 15. Just, but I don't know.
Okay.
That is one comment I had, was $30, I think it said $30 a day. Right now, the current policy is $12 a meal, and they turn in the itemized meal ticket. So if you want to,
Going from $12 a meal to 15.
I don't have a problem. Can I make another suggestion though, that you leave it where, I get that you're saying $15 a meal within an average day of like 45. Simply because then if you're a little under on breakfast, but a little over on dinner, it averages out of it when you're traveling.
That's true.
It is really hard when you're going to a
Basically, it's a
meeting
per
and there's
diem
like
rate.
a network group that gets together for the evening meal. They're not gonna go to McDonald's to have that meal.
Right.
And then we're paying out of pocket because we wanna be part of that discussion.
But you could do your $2 McDonald's breakfast.
Yeah, a per diem per day
You
maximum
know, just
would
to
help
help
us
out.
do that. Just things to consider.
And this is something to address in
the book. It's
in
not
the
today.
employee- Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting a little.
The credit card today, please.
Do we want to settle the credit card
Yeah.
today?
Yeah.
Okay, 1,000 for
Clerk,
those
treasurer,
departments, other than what, sheriff and
EMT.
ambulance?
And
And
road
bridge.
and
Road and bridge.
Pardon?
And road and bridge.
Road and
public
bridge.
works.
That's,
Road and bridge.
okay. So,
Right,
what do you,
Road and Bridge, EMS, and
road and bridge.
I got Road and Bridge and EMS and
sheriff?
sheriff.
Yeah, how much do you need?
And what
What limit?
limit on those?
Yeah,
Because I'm running, because we're gonna be
30, 15?
15.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm fine with 15, yeah.
15 sounds like a reason, I mean,
Yeah. You're awfully quiet. Usually not this
well,
quiet.
we're thinking, we normally don't use one, but I can see more and more we're starting to need it, so.
Well,
And some hotels are getting real picky about, they will not direct bill unless you can guarantee them 30 days that Cheyenne County is going to be staying at their business. So they won't set up a direct bill. So in that instance, a credit card would be really nice.
And there's some that'll still direct bill, but they want a credit card produced when you check in.
Yes.
They'll tell you they're not gonna bill a credit card unless something happens, but.
But it
orders
runs and
still
it puts
won't.
a hold on that.
Yeah,
and
and
it
that's what I'm
runs.
already saying, so if
It
you
does.
use your personal card, you're gonna have a hold on your personal card for
Yeah.
a while.
Now, do they have other credit cards, like with Bank One or Bank West, or just the one credit card?
Those are debit cards.
Those are
that they
debit cards.
currently
Those are
have
debit
now.
cards, okay.
And I really think we need to discuss, if we get the credit cards, that we close those. The bank is not really happy about having those in there, because they are not actually really covered in their fraud. Their fraud
Our
protection.
time is well.
I mean, that's why they're separate from the county money in their own account, and they only have $1,000 in them. So, but I would like, as the treasurer, to see them closed.
Ryan, what do you think for your emergency management on a credit card?
$1,000.
Okay, to be efficient, okay.
If we have a major emergency and big purchases, it's probably going on the other departments.
Oh, thanks.
Note to Deb, do not give a copy of my credit card.
All this is for convenience of paying bills, and I think it's going to make things go smoother.
And the receipt still needs to be acquired at the time of purchase to be turned in to be paying that credit
The
card on.
billing address, would that be straight here to the courthouse?
Well,
I think it should be.
your decision.
Deeds, what do you think?
Well,
Yes, I think it needs to be to the